Dear teachers and dear classmates, my name is Nicole, and today I would like to introduce you to the company with design and print in which I worked throughout my experience in Dublin. So, something about Erasmus and the preparation. Erasmus was basically like the organization that funded the whole project, and ABC College resides in Dublin, and they, through the Erasmus fundings, help find opportunities for internships and look for the workplaces in which we work. The preparation, first we had the selection procedure where we had to take a test, an interview, prepare a CV and covering letter, which was also reviewed by ABC College, and based on the results we got picked out for the workplaces. And after we were picked, 16 students from I think 40, there were after school classes in which we prepared for the whole experience, like the public transportation. We learned something about Ireland and about the places we will be working at.
Program is a great opportunity for students to gain work experience abroad while learning about new culture. To participate, I submitted an application, attended an interview, and
you had preparation in school as well.
yeah.
So, departure flight. First we took a bus from Nové Zámky and Šurany. We were split into two groups, and we traveled to Vienna airport. We arrived there at around 13:30. Then we took flight from there, which was actually delayed about half an hour, so the times doesn't match the actual time that we arrived there. And we arrived to Dublin at 5 p.m.
This was our room, we were living in the attic, and also this was our typical dinner.
What was that?
It was basically like a risotto, but with pork and some beans. It was really nice with all the spices.
They use different spices.
Yes. So, in order to get to our job, we had to get there some way. So, we were given the visitor leave cards, the weekly leave cards. So there were three means of transport in Dublin, which was the Dublin buses, the Dart trams and Plus trams. In our part of the city also the Swords Express operated, which was like the direct link between our part of the city and the city center. However, the leave card didn't apply to that, so we had to pay that for ourselves. This is the Dart train, and also this is the Swords Express coach.
So for our first day, it was our induction day, which was held at ABC College. So here you can see my journey to ABC College from my host family's house, and there we learned about our work and our stay, also about the public transport and a lot of useful information. Here you can see the ABC College from outside. So, and now let me move on to my workplace. It is the International School of English in Dublin. So they offer general English and almost every other course imaginable. They also have three main exams that they offer, which is Trinity exam, Cambridge exam, and ISOLS exam. And they also do courses to prepare you for that.
So, about my company, I worked in a company called WorkHub. It's an office space provider for startups, freelancers, and small to medium enterprises. Their goal is to provide flexible and modern workspaces for their clients. And they started with a single building on Camden Street, in which I actually worked at for those 2 weeks. And then the company is quite successful, and they got to expand to multiple locations, which include Fern Road, Bracken Road, Adelaide Road, and Daggett Street. And also, achievement of this company I would like to mention is that they, as of 2022, they are registered as DCSP, that means Trust and Company Service Provider.
Also learned about the company's program, about the English program that our colleague Mom was talking about. But if I'm being honest, I didn't really understand it. I know it was consisted of like 7 stages, and we also told him that like I didn't really understand, and he told us that it's okay because we didn't understand it the first when we started the year either, because it was from Brazil and their process of like getting hired was different, and also ours. I think Slovakia is a lot easier to use the English than Ireland. I couldn't really take pictures inside of the company because all the records that we were working at were very confidential. I only took a photo of basically the lobby of the company, and these were our colleagues. Here you can see this is Marge, Jane, Nicole, and Carla. Carla was, I think, the sweetest. She was the closest to us, and she always talked to us about the day, and she always helped us if we didn't know how to print documents. And Nicole, she showed us the scanning part of our job, and she was Romanian, so whenever she talked in Romanian, some of the words. I took a picture of a Christmas quiz that we had in the company. It was like 2 days before leaving. It wasn't mandatory, so only those participated who wanted. And it was basically about some customs and traditions in Ireland regarding Christmas, and also about some Christmas movies.
Here is the organizational structure.
Structure is excellent.
Here.
Will be definitely part of it.
Over here at the top is the CEO, that's Barnes. Down below you can see Cormac and Peter and May. May was actually my mentor. She was very helpful, very nice. Then over here is Louis. Underneath him in one department, the 3, Barnett, Ton, and Mark work with taxes mostly. And underneath them is Sarah, Mahit, and Veronica. So for my first day, I was mostly just getting documents, and then later on I was putting them in the system and shredding them. Here in the background you can see these red boxes, and they contained a lot of files which needed to be scanned properly. Then my other assignment was preparing payrolls. As you can see here, they used a different software. So I created these payrolls, and another day I sent all of the clients emails containing the invoices. The last day at work, we exchanged some small gifts with my mentor. As I mentioned, she was very nice and helpful. We got on really well. She gave me some professional advice because it was my first experience working in office and professional company. We said our last goodbyes. And here you can see my average journey home. By the Lewis train, it was always overcrowded, and sometimes I couldn't even get on. On my first try, I had to wait there for several trains. So it was an interesting experience. And here is me and Michelle at the Guinness storehouse that we visited as well.
I also work with Xero, which is actually accounting software. I had to add the company from which the invoice came from, the date, due date, correct tax percentage, and the correct quantity. I also work with Excel data keeping, where I keep track of the products we have in the showroom. And I added like small pictures of the product, the prices, and the quantity. And I also did Word product info sheets, which were used in the client's presentations.
Then my work experience. So one of my tasks was organizing. So I had one shelf, and I had to organize all the documents. So I had to take everything out and categorize it. I threw out the unnecessary documents, and then I organized it back on the shelf. Then archiving, I had to count all these cards and categorize them based on their color and language. and also like different brochures and posters. Then general office support. I went to the post office, I bought office supplies, I took pictures of their speeches, also I set up the stage and things for the activities. So this was my most challenging task, and there was scanning and data entry. So I had these peacemakers, which is like a brochure of what they did in a year. So they send it to their supporters to like talk about their achievements and like updates about their work. And it was challenging because they were really old and most of them had like water damage. So it was hard to find a good version that I could actually scan.
This was my workplace. This is a picture from outside and this is the picture of our office. Now I'm going to talk about my work. So we didn't have many tasks. We have around 4 or 3 tasks, and basically it was organizing data in Excel. I'm going to talk about it in more detail on another slide. So it was basically data entry and management in Excel. We basically had a big attendee list from a meeting in New York City of lawyers, because this company actually, its clients are lawyers, and we had to summarize their names, their addresses, the countries they're from, and afterwards we had to search LinkedIn for more info so they could contact them. What I have learned is that I improved my communication in English, as I was forced to use English on a daily basis. I learned more about the, I would say, boring nature of administrative work. I understood teamwork more because I worked with another boy. He was from Čaca, his name is Matej. So we had to divide our tasks accordingly, and I gained insights into life and work life in different countries.
I'm really grateful for the experience that I had. I'm grateful also for working abroad, and I'm really grateful for the friendship that I love. I do recommend to take part for everybody that has any opportunity.
Limited work experience I never worked in something like this. Also adjusting to new technologies or tools. I didn't really know how to use the tools first place, but then I learned it wasn't really hard and cultural adjustments. Some trips that we took, the Spire of Dublin was right in the center, so I think it was usable for everyone and it was interesting, really, I don't know. The most famous bar is the bar, so it was really nice to see. It was really Christmassy, and also the color printing. I took this picture in Galway. It's a really traditional symbol for Ireland. We went to Dublin, and we did the National Gallery. It was really good. It was huge, so we could really see everything. And here we visited the pub, and there's a marker. I think that was the most surprising thing. During our experience.
I just put pictures there. So we saw most of Dublin monument inside, but we also traveled to Galway city. You can see here, it's me with the famous Galway girl.
I haven't seen this Galway girl.
It was in the next to a cafe. It was also called Galway something. Everything was called Galway something there. Then we followed it up with a trip to cliffs, but unfortunately due to weather conditions the official cliffs of Moher were closed, but our tour guide took us to a village called Dublin and we saw these cliffs there. My favorite part was visiting the memorial of Oscar Wilde, who was a famous Irish writer. He wrote the picture of Dorian Gray. I visited the house where he grew up in, and it was everything there was about his life, about his work, so it was really enjoyable. And we also took a nice evening walk around the Temple Bar. We visited National Theatre of Ireland, the amphitheatre. We saw a play there. We visited the Christmas market, Dublin Castle, so it was really amazing experience.
cultural differences. Irish people love their cold weather. They wear shorts in December. They love their small talk. They ask you weird questions when you're, I don't know, buying something. Food, they eat loads of mashed potatoes, which I hate. And their way of life, they are not really punctual. They don't care if you're late. You can be late, they don't care. And we went to the Guinness storehouse. You can see beautiful pictures, photos. And on the last day, we had a certificate ceremony, but it was like online. We could give like a feedback. We could communicate with the ADC college and tell them what was good, what was bad, and we got certificates through email.
On our journey home, a taxi took us from Ratku to the Dublin airport around 3 p.m. We landed in Vienna around 10 p.m. and again a microbus took us to Nové Zámky, and we were in Nové Zámky around 1 a.m.